How do you feel, my love?
Tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just want to cry and take a nap.
Yeah. That's always an option. It's always an option to cope with life. Yeah. Well,
I think that's what's making me feel like extra, not the most frustrated, but like extra frustrated on top of everything, is that I don't feel like there's time to grieve and recover and rest, because it's just like
you gotta get back. Yeah. The whole energy of like, get back in the hustle and bustle. Nobody has time for tears. Yeah. Like rub some dirt on it type of attitude. Like, you know, because grieving is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it can feel,
fast. Especially in LA, like there's this constant feeling of behind. So, and just things to do, things to do. Oh my god. It's a vacuum. We're just gonna go with it.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been trying to record and set up, and there's been so much resistance. Well, in general, with us starting this conversation, this podcast together, which we've had this idea for some time now, but life has just been happening, and it's been feeling like chaotic and out of control, which is, to the human being, that is a big threat, but we're here, and this is, just the fact that we're sitting here on our couch, just being like, we don't give 3 fucks or shits about, our neighbors, like being quiet, or, worrying if everything is, in the most, adequate condition for us to execute something or do something that we want to do, we're just going for it. And essentially that is kind of it's very interesting, because, that is how we're starting this whole thing, which this whole thing is just a conversation that we always have, since the moment we met, a conversation about life, and the happenings of life, but also the connectedness that we often feel in a lot of different situations, good and bad, and how it all feels like life is flowing in these patterns, and they're all more similar than not, oftentimes. And so this conversation is, we want it, the whole goal of it was just to, make it public, because we're like, oh, this is cool. Maybe there are other people out there who would find some sort of something, I don't know, some sort of solace or comfort or value. And that sounds so like, businessy, value, and you got to give value to your listeners and the people out there. But no, like anything, like some sort of commonality, because I feel like that's what like makes us feel all right, that I'm not the only one who's going through these types of things or thinking this way, and because you can often feel alone. And this is just us going public with our conversations, and as cliche as that might seem, because I feel like everybody who has an idea for a podcast for the most part is like, we have interesting conversations, like let's just do a podcast. And like, but this is just us, to be honest, just trying to open up the conversation even more, and see what else is out there, like who else thinks about these things or sees these things or wants to have conversations like these.
Yeah, we had the idea for a podcast. We wanted to call it Same Game because it just started as a joke where we just started saying that it's all the same game.
Yeah.
And because just seeing these similar patterns and how things always kind of point you back to these same places and that nature in life, and then the game nature of life, how it always feels like we're in this game that we're supposed to play it a certain way, and there's these certain rules, and sometimes it doesn't feel fun like a game should be fun because it gets really hard and we get caught up in it. And so we had all these conversations and thought that could be a good idea, and we wanted to kind of test it out on the MetaMoon podcast first and see if people are into this and if it resonates and if we should keep making more things like this. So we've been talking about doing it for a long time, and we were going to record the first one this last week, and then
we had
life happened. We got robbed. Someone broke into my car and stole a lot of gear from us, and that was kind of on top of an already tough couple of weeks, which is a lot of life difficulties and just feeling like we're trying to create, and build something for ourselves and grow, and just feeling this energy of like every time we try to do something or move forward, it's just life kind of smacks us down. And that just kept happening over and over and over. And this car break-in, for me at least, was like, it felt like the last hit I could take, and I just wanted to give up. And it's just, we hear all these stories of like, if you just try and you just go for it, life wants the best for you and the universe is on your side. And, we kind of are fed this idea of that, especially I think as millennials. I've read a lot of things like that where the older generation, say the millennials, that's the problem with us, is we think we can do anything because we've been fed this like follow your dreams narrative. And I think I really believed that for a long time. Like, if I just go for my dreams, like the universe wants me to accomplish them, like it'll be on my side. And that just isn't, to be honest, how it's felt. It feels like the harder I push, the more resistance there is. And then the more I've expressed that, the more I hear people saying that that's how other people have felt too, that there's this, the more you're kind of really going after something, and it's like there's this pushback and this energy. It's almost like the kind of scientific law of energy, where there's like an opposite and equal force towards anything that kind of, you push, it pushes back. And that's more of how it's felt to me.
Yeah.
So today was kind of just, like me having to go to work soon, and the vacuum, and it's hot in here, and we have like a 58 Shure mic here because we couldn't find the mic and we couldn't find the camera batteries, and everything in life was just like telling us to not do this. And we've been trying to do it for so long, and we're just like, we're just doing it. We're just going to do it and keep going, because what else do you do in life? Like, what else is there to do than just get back up and go?
It reminds me of some old writings, some old writers that I used to get into like a couple years ago, and like Papaji, and he often talks about, how in this life, and more on people who identify, he's kind of more talking to people who identify as like spiritual seekers, but he always preached to end the search, that everything was here, and brought a lot of freedom to a lot of people. Obviously, life seems to often, no matter what philosophy or way of thinking we subscribe to, seems to be showing us that the obstacle is always the way. Whatever is happening is the way, is what needs to be happening, right? And so there's a level of, I feel like, surrender to what is happening that we most of the time resist in life, you know, and it's what creates this psychological drama that we as human beings kind of just have, you know, on the daily, especially in the West, but and where our culture just seems to always be, you know, just either like in a tango between tomorrow and yesterday, and tormented by yesterday and the mistakes that we did yesterday, and the grief and all the shame, and then fearful because of all that stuff that I keep reliving in myself that nobody's aware of. I'm fearful for tomorrow. And so, which is very interesting, because then you look at the present moment, and sometimes what's in the present moment? An obstacle, like a big something, and random, like something that I didn't want to be happening right now is happening. And so we either, that's the thing, we either, you know, fight or flee, you know, as science kind of agrees, you know, in those moments. And I think to fight is to surrender to what is, which is very interesting, which is also very, like, it's an interesting thought to have. It's like a contradiction.
It's not what we think of as fighting.
Yeah. To
like
fight is
striving.
to accept it, like that. It's fighting what, but it's more fighting what's going on inside. So, yeah, and that was the camera going off.
Why? Do you want to just run and turn it back on?
Yeah, because I think it goes in, like, I don't know.
That was the camera turning off?
Yeah, that was camera turning off.
Because the camera we wanted to use, we can't find the batteries. Yay! Yeah. And the other camera got stolen. Yay. Yeah. It made me think of the idea that when we strive, when we're trying to do something, it normally makes it harder to do the thing. Like if you're reading and you like squint and you're straining and you're like, trying to read, it actually blurs your vision.
Yeah.
So that mechanism of tightening and striving and trying and like fighting something is almost always not helpful. What is helpful in anything, you probably know more with sports and stuff, I don't know if this is the case in that, but I would assume so, is when you relax, is actually when you're more effective. There's
a state, especially for an athlete, that you have to train up to. Like if you're not trained, so if you're a new sailor, right, like we were talking about that the other day, about, you know, how, you know, there's so many writings and like cool, like inspiring quotes that talk about sailors. Like what makes a good sailor is, you know, tough, a tough ocean, like tough waves and winds. And it's the same thing. You see it in sports, you see it in many aspects of life. But like as an athlete, like if you don't train and push past the very uncomfortable aspect of you training your body, allowing your body to change, because that's what's happening to your body, to be able to handle the intensity of the sport, then you never get to a specific a place of, and most right now recently in the realm of sports, but also in the realm of you know, even in business, like you see this, like there's a state called flow, you know, and if you know what I'm talking about, yeah, you've probably seen the same amount of like videos or research that's out there, but it's basically that feeling that an athlete who does what they do, and the painter can experience the same thing, the yogi can experience the same thing. Just somebody who's very dedicated to one thing, one craft, one thing. The more that they do it, the more that they're able to do it with ease. And the more you're able to do that thing and have that experience, the more you're able to actually enjoy it. Which is...
And probably excel at it more.
Yeah, excel and outperform the other people. Not that is like most important thing, but you tend to have a greater level of freedom than the novice, than the kid or the person who just started, you know, who picked up the ball or who just started training, you know.
Yeah.
So
when I first started hearing about flow, like the whole flow thing and flow state, the picture I got in my mind was, with the ease, was external. Like if you can tap into a certain space, like everything becomes easy. And what I think I've realized is it's more internal, and it doesn't mean that everything becomes easier for you, or you're not facing obstacles. It's that you are facing the obstacles and you do have all that resistance, but you're able to move through it with a certain level of being relaxed and not like like all of that tension, and which makes everything more difficult because you're fighting against your own self, really. So it's not that everything's going to get easy, which I think is the same principle when people think of enlightenment or bliss or nirvana. You know, it's like, well, I'll just be happy and my life will change. And there's this story, it's like sort of like a proverb where it says a man goes up a hill every day and then he comes down with a bucket to get water. And then the man gets enlightened and he goes up the hill and comes down with his bucket to get water, which is like nothing changes about what you do.
Yeah.
It's just
the external seems to stay the same, but what actually changes is the internal.
Yeah.
Which is everything.
How you're experiencing it.
Which is the issue. There's a lot of suffering. Like, and I'm not speaking for the rest of humanity. No, when I say there's a lot of suffering in the world, the only thing that I have to be able to put that to the test is my own suffering. There's a lot of suffering inside of me. It's because I want whatever is happening to be different, you know? Whatever is going on, whatever is coming to me or not coming to me.
Yeah.
I want it to be different. And this is the thing, like I feel like our body is designed to be receptive to absolutely every single energy. We are energy, the energy animating this form, right? That I call Stephano, that everyone who knows me calls Stephano. But this is all flowing together, you know? So if something is happening in the universe, it's going to affect me, and vice versa. When I take an action at will, it's going to have an action. This is just what is happening. You know, this is like what is really happening, and so we have to, I think, begin to draw the awareness that we have, right, and start to question where's the source of the suffering coming from, and is it really external, you know? Like most of the time, like when I was younger, like it felt like as if all the suffering, like if only this were better, if only this was happening the way that I wanted to, and that's why I'm sad, that's why I'm depressed, that's why I'm angry, that's why I'm suffering. And it was, and I think that shift in awareness from out here to in here, inside, is the shift, is the thing that is the whole point of this existence, you know. And especially to begin to enjoy what this all is. That shift, I think, needs to happen, or you know,
it'll create less suffering if it happens.
Yeah, because when you start to look at the very want and desire and attachment to that thing that you really, really want, you start to observe it, and you start to kind of, you know, like almost open your hands. You know, loosen your grip, so they say.
What I was realizing about this whole theft situation and observing why it got me so down, because there was a suffering in the fact that I was suffering, because as I've started to understand all of this more, there's kind of a thought that it's just going to stop, because I understand it in my mind. So I'm like, oh, why am I suffering right now? And then I get frustrated at myself that I'm suffering so much, but it really is always the same thing that's making you suffer. Like in this instance, it's attachment to the items that were taken from us. Like I'm identified with that those are mine. That's part of what I identify as me, which is, I've been reading this Eckhart Tolle book, A New Earth, and that's a lot of what he talks about, is that we identify with our bodies, with ourselves, with these stories. We identify with our material items, and that's always what causes suffering, is identification and attachment.
Yeah.
And so if you find yourself suffering, why am I suffering? Why is this happening to me? You can always trace it back to that. What am I identified with? What am I attached to? Because it's loss. It's loss of something that I've become identified with. And sometimes that's not, you can't just understand that in your mind and expect it to go away. That's why it's such a longer process. It takes a lot of discipline, because there's like, I felt all that in my body so strongly. My body was so afraid and felt so attacked and violated and fearful, like unsafe in my surroundings. And it was also in my body, and there was a frustration because I understood in my mind what was happening, yet the suffering was there. And so there's this process of learning that on a deeper level, and that just comes with discipline and practice. Yeah. Of letting go, relaxing, giving way to what is happening over and over and over and over. Yeah. And then we start to train ourselves to do that, because our body and our minds and everything we're working with here works in repetition. That's how it's taught. That's how we've been taught. Everything we believe and everything we use to operate is through repetition. And that's another part of like what I was reading the other day that made me think about resistance, was that the mind likes familiarity. Our brain wants what's familiar. And whenever something's unfamiliar or a change, we have all these mechanisms within us that are saying, no, stop, danger, because we want to stay safe to a fault. That's what we do, is try to stay safe, and familiar is safe, unfamiliar is not. So I think that's a lot of why we experience so much resistance when we're trying to do something new, we're trying to grow, we're trying to push ourselves outside of where we are. Why everything seems to like resist that is because our entire bodies and our brains are saying, no, this is unsafe, and it creates all this fear and creates all these excuses. And so that's just another piece of resistance that I was thinking about. Yeah.
Resistance, man.
It's real. It's so real, and you just have to push it. Yeah. I'm grateful to have somebody like you to learn about all this with, and go through these hard things. And like, I feel like we so easily could have turned on each other or blamed each other or gotten frustrated and not treated each other with love. And I'm just grateful to, when all shit hits the fan and life is like war zone, that I have you in my corner. And that makes me feel grateful to have at least that. So if they came and robbed you from me out of my car, then I probably would be not okay. But yeah, I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, my love.
We need to cry and take a nap, but we can't because we have to work and pay our rent. Yay! So yeah, we'll wrap it up for today, but this is a little intro to what we kind of want to do, and more to come, more conversations to come about relationships, our relationship, life, everything going on. And we're no experts, we're figuring it out, but we like to verbally process everything a lot, and so maybe that can be helpful to other people who are also feeling like life is a lot to figure out.
Yeah. Well, until next time.
We don't have any catchy out phrases, but
we don't. We'll have to come up with
end.
a jingle soon.
We did it, my love.
Yeah, we did it.